somewhat, it's pretty far along, but it's still a work in progress.
The song that we originally did on this lovely artist that signed to my company, Service Entertainment. She's sitting right there in the front.
Jessica?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's give it up for Jessica.
Sexy Jess.
All right. So why don't you play a little bit of the track?
Let's start off with some music.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You can't comprehend the sense of singers, they're not physical. I don't know why it's so. What in the hell is it you do? I'm crazy in life. Even though you feel it too. It's true, I've never seen it. That's right. So put your pride. Tell me that you got me feeling for your love, baby. My ding dongs on you.
We'll get ended on a moan.
You're waiting for the right breath.
Yeah, gotta get the breath.
So everything that you've got going here is completely in the box, meaning StudioOne plugins.
Yeah,
you had the V-Synth, one thing that was rendered, but other than that,
yeah, we did it. I wanted to try and do an entire track inside StudioOne with very little, third-party plugins. So this was something we took to the task. It was a song that we had, and I wanted to make something a little more pub-friendly. So,
and right here, it looks like it's not. Maybe it's a dozen or so tracks, but that's until we open up the background vocal folder. And then we'd start to see there's a few more things going on.
Quite a few.
So the reason I wanted to open that up and let you guys see that is, now if I'm not mistaken, this is a custom 17-inch brand new 2015 MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
Not exactly.
Not really.
When did they stop making the 17? About 4 years ago?
I don't even remember.
Here's the point. We're going to play this. We got all these tracks going. We're doing somewhere here where there's a bunch going on. And then I'm going to zoom the screen and I want you guys to see the performance meter, how it's hitting the CPU, how much it's putting load on the hard drive.
Patiently waiting, obsessively lyrical, so hands I can't deny. If I can know what feelings
Like nothing. Like nothing. So the point being is that StudioOne is a program that runs really easy on the computer. You can have some quite large sessions in here. It's cross-platform. It's Mac. It's PC. When we were doing the Catfire demo earlier, another session where we had 60 tracks going and 15 virtual instruments on a 2010 iMac. So, you know what? Whatever computer you have right now, odds are you're going to be able to run StudioOne on it just fine and actually do some quite elaborate production with it. So
don't forget it does also audio and it's ambient.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, if you're in Producer, StudioOne Producer or StudioOne Pro, audio unit and VST, which is really cool because there's some programs on the Mac that will only run audio units. Obviously on the Windows side they're running VSTs. StudioOne on the Mac will run audio unit and VST. It doesn't care, it'll run all of them quite nicely.
That's why I love it. So what we did on this is I wanted to try and start with, as you can tell, like a breakbeat feel. So we used, started off with like the Impact kit. And all of these are like stock sounds, but one of the main things that I like using by not only just are the sounds that come with it really great, but the ability to create your own sounds easily by like layering.
Why don't I go through Impact a little bit?
Okay, let's do it.
I'm just going to stand up for a second. Okay, so I want to show you guys a couple things with Impact. Click and open up like the outputs on right there.
All right, here we go.
Right off the bat, you can see here that every pad on Impact gives you your choice of up to 8 different mono outputs and 8 different stereo outputs. So when you are programming a beat, even though you're basically treating it like a drum machine, you've got individual outs for all your sounds. So your kick can be running to its own channel. You can have separate compression, EQ, processing for the kick, separate for the snare. You can really break things out in a very cool way. If we go look over here on the right side of Impact. Oh, thanks, Ron. Ron Colaha, everybody.
Let's give a big hand to Ron, everybody.
So if we look over here on the right side, another thing that's very cool is in StudioOne is there are other drum modules out there, and they're really cool. There's battery and machine and all these, and they're all of these ones, and they're very cool and they're very powerful, but they also are very complex. There's a learning curve to them. One of the things that I really like about StudioOne, about Impact, is it's a great sounding module, but it gives you this. If you look at these 3 sets of parameters here, these are the ones that you're going to be able to immediately affect the tone in a very obvious way, and these are sort of your meat and potatoes parameters here. So you've got your volume envelope here. Things that are really cool like this is you can take a crash cymbal or an open hi-hat and turn it into a closed hi-hat just by closing the decay. You got an open hat or a crash somewhere?
Nope, we're going to get to that later.
Okay. Same thing with, click on the filter. Click on that. So here in the filter section, you can see this. You've got a whole bunch of filters that, again, can be assigned high-pass filters, low-pass, band-pass filters, 12 dB, 24 dB. So there's a lot of sound shaping, and then the same thing goes up top as far as your tuning and your pitch control of these things. Now, all of these things, and if you guys saw Catfire's demo earlier today, or watch it later, we talk about the ability to automate things in StudioOne very easily. Any parameter, go ahead and just click on any one of them. Oh, let's zoom out.
Cut off.
If you'll notice in the upper left corner there, any parameter that he touches will show up in that corner screen, which means if I want to automate something, maybe take it, for example, a snare drum or something, and you got like a 30-second roll on the snare drum, you want to do some pitch, have it move around or descend and something like that. You would just touch the pitch over here, drag and drop it down onto the arrange area, and then you could just draw in your automation there and do that. So what you're going to find is that this is a very powerful, it has the features that matter in terms of your individual outs, your control over the filter, the level, and the pitch. And like Shaka was saying, the ability to layer and just drag more samples and more samples, up to I think 8 samples on each pad that you can have layered on any of them. And go to layer mode, and let's leave that window open for a second. And you'll see over here in layer mode, there's 3 modes: velocity, round robin, and random. Velocity, that's a pretty obvious one. As you layer them in, and you can set that from a soft velocity to a loud velocity, how your striking is going to play through. But the other ones are kind of cool. Round robin would be, so maybe you're not using drum samples. Maybe you've got some actual instrument cues or music parts or something. Well, what round robin would do is every time you strike that pad, it's going to play the next sample that's in the layer in order, and then it'll circle back around. As you hit the 1, 2, 3, and there's 3 samples there. The 4th time you hit it, it'll come back around. But random is very cool. This is the one you use, right, Ron? For
random and round robin, because like you can do kick patterns, you can take layers. What I like to do is put several different kick pad sounds on one pad.
Oh, and you know what the pattern is.
And it just goes around, and it gives a variety to the pattern.
The point being is, even when we're programming and stuff, if we can, we want it to sound like a real musician as much as we can, or a real instrument with a little bit of life and a little bit of variety. The random one is very cool because if, let's say you want to do program a hi-hat, and you got like 16th notes or something that is somewhat, repetitive, and if it's one tone, it would be kind of monotonous. So you could load in 8 different hi-hats that are closed hi-hats, to say they're just a little bit different enough in tone. So now when you lay in that 16th pattern, it's going to randomly kind of mix it up and shuffle the deck, and what you get is a hi-hat that sounds more like an actual drummer playing it, where it's not exact every single time. There's a little bit of humanness in it. So Anyway, so Shark uses Impact quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about it, when you're picking a dog and you're trying to figure out which one to use, certain programs do, are known to do certain things really well. Some do really audio really well. Some of them do MIDI very well. And I came over from Logic, so everybody knows that's worked on Logic. How many people worked on Logic? And how many Pro Tools people we have? Okay, so what do you guys use?
StudioOne.
StudioOne.
That's right. That's not like me.
Awesome.
There we go. Well, the reason I came over from those things is because it mixed the two worlds. Like I had a great abundance of content, which all Logic users know. Like when you got it out the box, they had a lot of sense and different things, and they sounded really good. You've heard them on many records for a lot of years. But they've gotten older. They haven't updated the library as much, since it's been bought by Apple. But with StudioOne, I was amazed at how great the sounds were, how well they cut through, how well, and how comparable or better that they were to even a lot of third-party things. And this was just out of the box. And then how well and how easily it handled audio and how well the audio sounded coming out. That's one of the major things. If anybody that's come from a different dog, the audio engine in StudioOne is phenomenal.
It really is a big deal. We talked about this when we first started using StudioOne. The first time that either one of us went to burn a CD from the project page, for example, compared to any CDs, you got a rough mix and you're in Logic or whatever, you burn a CD and take it out to the car to give it a listen somewhere where you're familiar with the surroundings. And the first time I ever burned a CD in StudioOne, there was a punchiness to it. There was a weight to the sound that I didn't heard before.
I used to take it a step further. I used to have tracks that I did in other DAWs, and I would literally grab the entire session of audio files from that session. Because a lot of times I would write and bounce out because a lot of engineers use Pro Tools to mix. But I would take those same files and pull them back in StudioOne and immediately...
Right, not even without doing anything.
Yeah,
you just made it sound better.
Well, out the box is, what, $300? And it was sounding better than my $20,000 Pro Tools system. And I couldn't believe it. I paid $20,000 for this and $300 for this. This is sounding better than $300 than $20,000.
The other thing is, and this is an important thing, is about workflow. And again, those of you who are now all StudioOne users, I'm sure you guys have really come to kind of appreciate and get spoiled by the whole drag and drop thing. If any of you have used StudioOne for any length of time and then had some occasion to go back to another DAW, maybe you're collaborating with somebody else or you're opening up an old project for something else, night and day, right? The difference when things that you get very comfortable in Logic, in StudioOne, being able to just make one move and it accomplishes all these things, and then you go back to your another program and that one move doesn't do it. You gotta go this and then these two key commands and then switch screens and then we'll go over to this, drag, and so that's something, the value of that is because inspiration and creativity itself, it can be very fleeting. You guys all know that. Sometimes you're sitting on the couch, an idea pops into your head. Before you can get off the couch and pick up the guitar, it's gone sometimes. You go, oh, what was that? The timing, you don't quite get the phrasing right or whatever. In StudioOne, you're able to grab that. If that's, you're like, as soon as you can think of something and you make that move with one step and you get instant feedback, right away, yeah, that's what I thought it was. Well, that wasn't as good as I thought it was. The difference between doing it in StudioOne, where it might take you 1 second or two to determine that, there were many times through the years when I would be working on something in Logic, and I have what I think at the moment is a really great idea. Oh, this is going to be, wait till we do this. And you start down that road, and you try this, and you move that, you're doing these things, and about 15 minutes later, you've gone through all the steps to accomplish this brilliant idea that you have. And it wasn't that great. And it's usually right about then that I'm checking to see what's on TV, and I'm gonna make a sandwich, shutting it down for the night.
I had the opposite situation is all musicians know that you're in tech mode, and immediately, once you're in that mode, you know, you're going through all these steps.
Oh, the creative brain shuts off.
It just shuts down for me, you know, so with the drag and drop, you know, I can grab a loop, pull it in, I can easily time stretch it if I want to, with like an option click.
I want to do one thing just to show these guys. We did it in Campfire's presentation. I want to take one of those little, here, like this guy. We're going to take this, that snare.
That's the, yes.
All right, so we're going to highlight that one little object there. Actually, this is fine, so everyone can see it. Change the color of that one so it stands out. So everyone can see that one right there, right? That's selected. And I'm also going to set the cycle over here for this. I'm going to put the cursor over here. Now what I want to do right now is I'm going to convert that one object of the snare drum to MIDI. I'm going to convert it from MIDI to audio. Now the reason I had set it up the way I did just now is because if we were doing this in another DAW, there'd be a few things we would have to do first. One would be where the cycle is, we would want to move it over there and set the range of that piece of snare part that I want to render. I would also have to either solo that track or mute all the other tracks, otherwise when I go to bounce it, it's going to bounce everything. Once I've done that, I also got to make the decision to export that as audio. So now I got to go to an export menu and select a destination. If I don't already have a destination, it means I got to create a folder for where I want it to go, and I got to name that folder, and then I got to name the file itself that I'm going to put in that folder, and then I say, okay, now it renders it. Now I want to bring it into the song, so now I got to create a new audio track, name it the same name because we don't want to get confused, and I'm going to mute the original MIDI track because I don't want doubling going on. I just want to hear the audio version. So just me explaining that to you guys took about 45 seconds.
That's the technical side I was talking about.
Yes, to actually do that.
Not creative right now.
Right, that might take you 2 or 3 minutes to do that in the real world if you're in the zone and you're really cooking along. But in StudioOne, if I want to convert that part right there to a MIDI part, I'm going to take you through all the steps. Step 1 is Command B. Step 2 is, there is no step 2. That's it. We just rendered that snare track just like that. It did all of those steps that I just said. It created an audio track and named it.
Something came up. I don't know if you noticed when it was rendering, you guys see like a little red number pop up. And I know all my StudioOne users know what I'm about to say, but for those who don't, it peaked a little bit. Now, remember the audio engine that we were talking about? Things that cause the sizzling bacon and other dogs, you know, that sizzling and over, you know, when you see the things in the red, it doesn't happen in StudioOne. But if you're exporting something, if you're working with other people that are working in Logic or in Pro Tools, it will immediately let you know in that bar, in that box, the render box, how much you went over, so that you can easily adjust your level and bring it down exactly that way. Instead of guessing, you know, how many times you bounce something down, it's like, is that out of the red now? Is that out? You know, the StudioOne, it tells you exactly.
That's a very important tip for collaborating because here's the thing, and those of you guys, again, the StudioOne guys know this. You can really slam these tracks hard in StudioOne. You can go into the yellow, you can go into the red, and you're not going to hear clipping. The only place you want to stay out of the red, of course, is in your master fader because that's going to be the mixed file. But as you're laying these tracks down and you're hitting them really hard because StudioOne has so much headroom, you're going to be fine collaborating with other StudioOne users and you won't have to make any of those adjustments. But like Shaka was just saying, if you're now going to take, you know, 20 or 30 or 50 tracks that you've got really slamming in StudioOne and are going to collaborate with somebody who's using Logic or one of the other DAWs or Pro Tools or whatever, you're going to want to go back first and make sure that none of those are going above 0. You won't, because they will buzz, they will crack and clip in these other programs. And it's not because they were poorly recorded, it's just those other programs' inability to handle the heat.
The code was written a long time ago.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. And then again, it's because we use them all, and we have used them all for 20 plus years. But all of these other programs were written in 1987, and 85, and 91. So great programs, lots of cool features, but they're built on code that goes back going almost to 30 years ago. The problem with that is with every new layer of version that you come out with, the program gets more and more bloated and more stuff that it's got to navigate through just to do all of the new things. Studio One isn't that old. It goes back to 2010, 2009 maybe was when they were. So the code is relatively only a few years old. That's why it's so efficient, you saw with the processor. That's why it's cross-platform. Because it's 21st century code. That's why the sound engine is as good as it is. That's why the time stretching is as good as it is. So let's back this out.
Yeah. Now, this is one of my favorite big features. Before we do that, how many of you guys have done a song and you wanted to bounce your CD and you grab a mastering plug-in, you throw it on the master bus, like that's doing something professional, so you're gonna go in your car and it's gonna bump at 0 dB. We've all done that at some point. So with Studio One, they took it a step further and basically built a whole mastering section, which they call the project menu. So we have our song section, we have our project section, and that gives you a whole palette of mastering plugins the same way that you find it in professional mastering.
And this is in Studio One Pro.
Studio One Pro, right, exactly.
And so this song that we had here in the multi-track session, what we did was we went up here to the song menu and you'll see where it says add to project. So we did that and we created it, and we won't do it again because it's already there. And in fact,
let's erase it and show them how easy in real time.
Oh, did you just lose the other project?
But it's so quick.
Alright, well we'll do this. We'll do a save as then. We'll give it a new name. Just add a 1A. Yeah. So now we save that. And I'm actually going to close this one. Use it now. Oh, you know what? We'll leave it open. We'll add it to this project. So now if we come over here and say, because I'm going to do the whole explanation about it. Alright, so now we go over here and say add to project. Now I can either create a new project, like it says here, or in this case, I'm going to add it to the existing project that's open. So when we do that, it brings it over here. Now it's going to update that file, and it's going to basically do an offline render of that whole song and send it over to the project page. Now while that's happening, I want to talk a little bit about the project page and what's really cool about this.
Don't have any time.
Well, I got time.
No, go ahead. We're done. Go ahead.
There we go.
That's how quick it was.
So we got 2 songs in it. Okay. So here's the thing. This is a quick show of hands. Who here does most of their production starting as sort of by themselves at their existing studio, right? At least from the writing point, right? When you start to work on stuff. And for some of us, we're finishing the whole song. We're trying to finish the whole album in our studio that we have at our home. So this is now gonna. The project page alone is worth the price of the upgrade. Here's why. When you're doing a whole album, it's not like you have the whole band and you're booking time at Ocean Way and you're rolling in and cutting 10 songs in 2 days and everything is recorded. We're doing one song at a time, usually starting with a beat, then a bass part, then the keys, and then we start to add the rest of it. So one song might take us anywhere from a few days to a few weeks to do. And we're trying to do a whole album. So what happens is, when we're doing a whole album, is songs 1, 2, and 3 are probably going to sound quite different than songs 8, 9, and 10, because by songs 8, 9, and 10, we know what we want. We've been working on this thing for a month or two. You know, we've got the plugin that we like, and we found, you know, we sort of, as we've made our way through, we're learning and we're getting more accustomed to what it is we really want this record to sound like. So what you end up with is the last couple songs you produce sound amazing, and the first couple songs you started to produce aren't up to par with those because those were done a couple months ago. Well, with the project page, the beauty of this is that your stereo mix is always linked back to the multi-track session. So we've all had this scenario, which is we finish a song and we've mixed it, and now we're going to bounce it and we're going to make our stereo file that's going to be the CD. And so we're going to name that file, whatever the name of the song is, Medicine Final Mix.
In Final Mix 1.
Final Mix 2. 3, 4. And then eventually we get to that point with Final Mix all caps, because that's really the final mix. That's
With the red dot next to it.
That's right, an exclamation and the hashtag. And you end up with like 20 final mixes of that one song. But in Studio One, if we were to go back over to this song here that we were working on, and say, you know what, that vocal track, what is that 3?
That's at 4. So let's
Let's take it down to dB to 3, and we'll save that song, and we'll put it away. So now, what do
you saw that ugly look that you got from the artist about bringing her voice down to dB.
It's louder in the other version. And we'll bring it back up in mastering. All right, so now you can see that one of those is giving us a red dot. What that red dot is telling everybody is that that is not final mix, all caps. We've made a change to the mix since the last time we rendered it. Now maybe we worked on this song 2 seconds ago like we just did, or maybe we worked on this song 2 months ago. I don't remember what folder it's in. I don't remember what drive it's on. You know, it's somewhere on my computer, but I got to go looking for it. But not with Studio One, because in Studio One, if you're in this project page and you see that red dot, you come over to it, and you click on that red dot, and it goes and it finds the multi-track session, and it opens it up for you, and it re-renders it for you. And when it's done re-rendering it, it saves it, closes it, puts it away, and brings you back to the project page. And what you end up with is now the blue dot. Did I hit something?
Yeah, a little too cool.
I was too quick on the trigger there? I'm sorry. Oh, I must say cancel.
So we're doing it again.
We're doing it again. It's taking all of about 12 seconds.
On this nice, lovely vintage Mac.
I'm honored because I'm touching the keys. You would never.
You don't even know how you're killing me.
He left his key cover at home. No human hands have ever touched the keyboard on this laptop until right now.
It's like giving it up on the first.
Are you saying I shouldn't have had pizza for lunch? Sorry. Anyway, so what we see now is we've got a blue dot. So now you know that that mix is the most current version. So what happens is, when you're doing a whole album, you can constantly be referencing back to that first track, that second track, those middle tracks, and make sure that you're keeping them up with, you know, so when you got that new plugin, or you did something that you really liked, you set up a certain EQ, and all of a sudden the vocals are sounding way better. You can go back to those other songs, bring them right up, and now put that new EQ that you like on those, and what happens is you get to the end and you have an album that sounds like an album and not like a mixtape. It sounds like you went in at one session and tracked everybody over the course of a day or two, and then you mixed everybody over the course of the next couple days. And that's what all of our favorite records sound like, because in many cases they have the luxury of doing just that, going to Capitol or Ocean Way or Record Plant or Ladyland or any.
You guys tell that Byron was a hand model?
No, I'm Italian.
Okay,
That's what it is. All right, so now we're going to do one last thing here, and that's, let's go back to the original, and we'll spice it and give it a little motion, give it a little energy, some percussion or something.
Yeah, something. Percussion. Let's try that. Give it a little more movement.
All right. So, pick the section of the song you did before.
Let's pick something like right around the B section. And some. Should I play it?
Play it first.
Patiently waiting, obsessive.
I'm gonna set that key command for you. That's bugging me. All right. So before we do this, there's a key command you guys should all add to your list. So pay attention here. This is good. if you go in here in the search window and you find return to start and stop. Now some of you guys know this if you use Pro Tools. Come on here. No, not that one. This one. There you go. Stop. So in Pro Tools, have you ever noticed when you play something and when you hit stop, it goes back to where it was? So like if you're cutting a vocal or something, you can hear that same start point over and over again. But sometimes you're editing a comp or a dialogue and you want it to keep moving linear throughout the thing. So the key command we just set up was so that
Hey, that's the. You took my key command.
okay. No, you did. That was what? What? That's not good. What else is it called?
You did it. No. Here's how you do it. Do a default.
Default? Alright, so we're going back to the default settings. That's fine. Apply. So now we're going to use the return to start on stop. I'll drive from here. Hang on. So we go over
You can change my key commands.
we're going to use that.
That's the one that.
Something else. Alright, so now, the point being this. So now, when I hit stop, it's stopping where it is and it continues from where I left off. But if I hit that key command, now... So you want to, and you want to set it up as a key command where you're just toggling in and out of that mode. So that way you can use it both ways. So are we back at the top of that bar? Okay, so good. Let's listen to that for a second. So now we're going to listen to some of these loops that you got over here in the browser. Okay.
Let's try that.
You got one today? Okay. So we're going to grab that guy and drag it. We're going to drag that over there. Alright, so now we've got here's a really cool thing we're going to do. One last thing we're going to do here is create a groove template in StudioOne. Now this is the really nice thing is that anything that you have in StudioOne, whether it's MIDI or audio, can be turned into a groove template.
Drag it and drop it. Excellent.
Awesome. So I had to pause for a second.
Yeah, you gotta pause when Stevie wants to.
By the way, any of you guys sitting here, did any of you guys go to the show at the Forum, the Songs in the Key of Life show? Amazing. That's all I'm going to say. It was such a great
4
show.
hours of amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do here is, so we've got these hi-hats, and I want to solo this little percussion part here. Is he stopping?
He's stopped, I guess.
He stops traffic, yeah. So what we're soloing is the percussion track that he's got going and the hi-hat part that we just dragged in. So turn that off. Here's the percussion part itself. So now what we're going to do, first we're going to do is merge those, the letter G. So here's what's a really cool thing, is that I want this percussion part here to be the groove template for that hi-hat part that we dragged in. This is how easy it is in Studio One. I grab that percussion part and I drag it up here, and I got the see the cue there, I got the quantize window open. When I let go, and also you can see right now that the note, the quantize value says 16th note, see where the mouse is? When I let go, it just detected all the transients in that percussion loop, and that's my groove template. Now I can come down here to that hi-hat part and just hit Q, and it just quantized it. See that? So let's turn off the other percussion. So before it was kind of a straight 16th note thing, now we got... So now I can come back here, and what I probably do is clear this back. So, because it's that easy to create a groove template, my last point I want to make here is this. That means anything that you have in your song can be the groove template. Quick show of hands, who here is a guitar player? Who here is a bass player? Keyboard player? Okay. For the non-keyboard players, for the guitar players and bass players, think about this. Let's say you play guitar, but you also do keys, but that's not your best instrument. So what's really cool here is, as a keyboard player, we've always had the ability to quantize because of MIDI and things like that. But even when you do that, depending on how hard you quantize it, it kind of takes the life out of it. It kind of makes it very mechanical sounding. But with the groove quantizing in Studio One, you just take the best musician you got, the best guy in the band with the best pocket, the best timing, and he or she is your groove template. Because now as a guitar player or a bass player, and you're laying down something killer, right, on your main instrument, and now you go in and you program in your keys, and the notes are right, but the